Those of you who have joined us already, we do have a rather large group registered for today's session, so we're going to wait till right at 10 to get started. So if you could just hang tight, we will begin shortly. Thank you. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. I do want to apologize if you can hear the siren in the background. It is the first Tuesday of the month, but thank you for joining us for today's Illinois Apex Accelerator at Champaign County EDC webinar with our Illinois Apex Accelerator Director, Kelly. Before I hand it over to Kelly, just a few quick things. You will receive a follow-up email either later today or first thing tomorrow morning, and it will include a link to the recording of today's session, along with a PDF version of the PowerPoint so you can go back and revisit any of the information shared. This is also part of a series, so I will include information to the next session of the series, along with links to our upcoming Illinois Apex Accelerator webinars, along with our SBDC one. So if you're interested in attending any of those, you can do so. All of our sessions are offered at no cost. You are also welcome to ask questions. We just ask that you submit those via the chat box, and we will cover them once Kelly is done with her presentation. You will not have access to turn on your microphone or your camera, so please be sure to just drop those in the chat box and we'll address them. So at this time, I'll hand it over to Kelly and we can get started.
Awesome, Jordan. Thank you so much. And good morning and happy new year to all that are joining us today. And thank you for being here. I too have the sirens going off in the back, so apologies for that. But welcome to the webinar, Relationship Building, Developing a Marketing Strategy. I'm Keli Krueger-Huhra, the Illinois Apex Accelerator Champaign County Economic Development Corporation Director. And there's my contact information. And just so you are familiar with the Apex Accelerators, we are a network across the United States and in the territories, approximately 97 centers. What is a very positive issue with that is that I do have resources that I can refer to and provide additional information throughout the not only the country, but throughout the state. We have a network of 11 in the state of Illinois, and there are over 600 government contracting experts in all of these centers. We provide critical education and training, like what we're doing today, to businesses that want to be a part of the government supply chain. And we help to generate those additional procurement suppliers for state and federal agencies with building the supply base for federal government contracting. That results in a stronger industrial base, greater competition, and of course, when you have greater competition, higher quality goods at a lower cost for the taxpayers. These are the specifics of the services that we can provide: conducting market research, which was the previous session that was held, finding government opportunities, and establishing relationships with the agencies that are potentially your customers. SAM, the System for Award Management, is a database that all federal contractors are required to be in and can be a little bit overwhelming. We also help with that. Finding businesses to help with partnering agreements, teaming agreements, preparing and finalizing bids. You will see as you monitor our trainings that are available, we will be having some specific trainings on not only understanding a solicitation, but preparing bids. We provide technical information, such as requirements for the Department of Defense in logistics part of packaging and shipping product there, course certifications, and finding those bid opportunities for both state and federal agencies as well. And those are just some metrics on the right-hand side of the success that we've had with the Illinois Apex Accelerator Network. Today's objectives, we're going to be talking about identifying agency targets. Now, we spent a lot of time in the previous session on market research and understanding who our agency targets are going to be. Now, we're going to move that forward in how we're going to determine what our marketing strategy is going to be, knowing who our potential customers are. Meeting with those agencies, the all-important, how do we get in front of the people that we want to do business with? Specifically for the government, identifying contract opportunities, and we will, as Jordan said, the third part of this training is on capability statements. We'll try to move it forward to that next session and give you a little highlights of what we're going to be discussing there. Most small companies, that there are many challenges in identifying potential customers, and of course in doing market research, that is a lot of data mining, and so you work hard to get there, but it's engaging early with them. It's one thing to know who your customers are. How do you get to them to where you have enough time and enough prior knowledge in building that relationship to be able to respond to solicitations? You've educated them on your offerings, and you're going to excel because you're getting ahead of the competition. So just to kind of recap, when we talk about market research, we talked about which federal agencies are purchasing products and services. Now, this does focus in on the resources that are available for the federal marketplace. However, many of these concepts can also be used more, universally, and et cetera, for state and local contracting as well. So understanding who's buying, how much are they buying? Are they using the set-aside markets? In other words, we're going to talk briefly about what that looks like for restricted competition to encourage participation by small businesses. Who are your competitors? And then more specifically, who holds that contract that you may want to go after? And what contracts are set to expire? And how can you compete for those future contracts, what we would call follow-up, when those are available for bidding? All this sums up basically into what we considered propensity. Who's buying, how much, how often? And so that is important to understand who your target market is going to be. You have to network, you have to focus on what you do well, your experience and what you bring to those agencies that the other companies cannot. And we're going to be talking about this in the differentiator section of the capability statement. And that doesn't, necessarily just mean companies that are small. You may be competing in a full and open marketplace with large companies as well. So we're going to establish that business marketing strategy. Okay. For you as a business owner, you're not going to be able to be all things to everyone. You are likely going to have things that you're doing today in the commercial marketplace, for example, that are not going to be where you're going to be best suited in the government marketplace, whether that be state or federal. So you need to find what your niche is. In fact, there's a saying that you'll hear entrepreneurs say, the riches are in the niches, meaning as a small business owner, define precisely what it is you're offering and what it is you're offering that you can separate yourself or differentiators from your competition. So your competition is out there focusing on being the best. And if you want to win in a sustained business in the government marketplace, you need to focus on being the absolute best in what you do. And so there are going to be winners and losers. And again, ask yourself, what is most profitable within your organization today? So you may not be looking to sell everything that you have in your portfolio to the government, because maybe that's not what you're really going to excel at in that complicated and very demanding marketplace. So what do you do best? Again, when we look at the capability statement, one of the three sections of that we're going to discuss in our last session is how do we differentiate from our competitors? And these are specifics. So we're looking at niche capabilities, business locations, specializations, our certifications, awards, recognitions, ISO, etc. Relationships that we have built, that the relationship potentially is a manufacturer, it's a software, hardware company. They've given you a status. You can provide a solution to the problem that is unique. And what are the staff qualifications that you have? Maybe you're a little shy on government experience, but your subject matter experts, your key personnel, have a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of experience from prior employments before joining your business, before starting the business. So those are all things that we would look at as differentiators and the potential there, and how we benefit the agency, the prime contractor, the team that we're looking to work with another small business potentially, or an agency specific decision maker, and how we fit an upcoming contract, how we can really build a tailored response because of all of these other things that we listed. So being candid as to whether your small business capabilities match the agency needs. So when we develop a data-driven plan, we start off at the top there. We understand they will be buying. All the market research tells us that there's high potential in that client. So in our 3 to 4 targeted agencies, we know that they're going to be buying. Okay, this is where we're going to spend our time. So we've looked at, and we will continue to monitor, which types of contracts are they using? Are they using cost plus? Are they using firm fixed price? Are they buying off of a mass award schedule? Very important that we understand we position ourselves for those types of contracts, and if that's our target agency. We're looking for opportunities that are coming up for, again, recompete. Those are contracts, maybe our competition has them, but whoever has them now, how do we position ourselves for the next time around? There may be an option there for that current vendor. Maybe, and we're going to talk about meeting with the agencies or meeting with decision makers. Maybe we can get out of that discussion that there's a pain point. There's something that's not quite there that the current vendor has for them that they'd like to develop and look for another vendor that has that capability that's missing. Again, government-wide acquisitions, how you can get as far in advance of that contract before it hits the street. And that's going to be very important when we talk about meeting with a decision maker. We look for the buying office. Now, what is a cognizant buying office really referring you to? It's the fact that the buying office could be buying a Peoria, Illinois location for the USDA, could be buying for Iowa, Wisconsin, could be buying for VA hospital out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, in Danville, Illinois. So it's really important to understand where we're going to make those connections. It's not necessarily where the work is being performed, and finding out which agencies your competitors are selling to. Now, we found that very easily in the Federal Procurement Data System, NG. When we use that database, we got a top 10. We got the 10 vendors that are selling the majority of the contracts to the marketplace. So we are well positioned in our market research to understand who our competitors are selling to. And we can do that specific to NACE codes, product service codes that are assigned to the jobs that they're getting. And just to reinforce, again, that the federal agencies have specific goals to use small business. A small business is broken down into social economic categories as well. So a part of the overall small business plan is to do business with service-disabled veteran-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, hub zones, historically underutilized business zones, and also small disadvantaged businesses or 8A contractors. Now, these are all, with the exception of small business is self-certified because the SBA determines in their size standards what's small And so as long as you are under that threshold, you are considered small. But these others are certified through the SBA. So it does require the due diligence of the SBA to prove that you are capable and qualified as an owner and someone that is in control of these businesses that has that status. Okay. So again, the agencies are graded on their small business performance. It's very important to them. They compete interagencies. For example, I put up here the Department of Defense, their scorecard. They have different, obviously, departments, agencies within the Department of Defense, and they will compete against each other for who can achieve the highest standards on contracting with small businesses. So it is important they are held to that standard. Now, what does that mean when you develop your market strategy? Besides the opportunity you have with the set-aside marketplace as a small business, it also provides resources out there to support small businesses, to be liaisons and advocates for small businesses to get into this marketplace, to get in with decision makers. So one of the representatives, one of the advocates that we have for small business are through the SBA, and they're called procurement center representatives. You'll hear them referred to as PCRs. Procurement center representatives work for the SBA, so they do not have allegiance to the agencies. They are working with the agencies that they're assigned to really, again, be advocates to include small businesses wherever possible within the contracting strategy that the agency is putting together. So they'll mediate small business issues. They work very closely with contracting staff at the federal buying offices. Now, what does that mean? They are co-located in many cases with contracting offices. They communicate with the agencies on their upcoming requirements. Keeping in mind the agencies are defining how that solicitation is going to be issued well before it goes what we would refer to as on the street, before you would see it in SAM, as an example, before it's actually issued. So they're reviewing those acquisitions and solicitations, helping them make a set-aside decision. First and foremost, can it be restricted competition to a small business? So they're going to inform the agencies on updates of what the SBA is doing, the goals, certifications. Those of you that are looking for certifications in the federal marketplace through the SBA, know that the SBA recently changed their platform. They went to a one-stop shop for certifications. That's important for the agencies to understand. So they're the ones that are out there making those updates to the agencies themselves, the contracting decision makers. And basically the bottom line is they're helping them meet their sub goals, so small business goals through training and counseling. And they are approving those subcontracting plans at the time of award, understanding that if a prime contractor, if a large contractor, or Raytheon, for example, is getting a solicitation through an agency that's over $750,000, they are required as part of their bid to submit a subcontracting plan. So we're going to talk a little bit more about subcontracting, but those plans are reviewed and approved by these procurement center representatives. They get copies of certificates of competency. They're reviewing the policies that are established, and in particular, their determination of how they're going to meet their small business goals. And so they're also doing training. Now, these are links. Jordan mentioned that you will be getting this presentation. These are links that will take you to the pages that will give you the procurement center representatives in our area. Here, I've just given you an example of two. Now, you'll see again that there are many states that these two cover because they cover multiple agencies. They don't work for the agencies, they work for the SBA, so they're able to do that. Again, the first one you see, Stephen Zallo, he is actually sitting outside the contracting officers at the Rock Island Arsenal. but you can see that he does handle other agencies, including the Department of Veteran Affairs in this region. You have Maria Galloway. Maria sits outside of the office at the Scott Air Force Base as the procurement center representative, again, advocating for small business. So if you want to find more, you have a particular agency you want to find a procurement center representative for. Now, connecting with them is very important as a small business owner, because when the agency comes to them and says, oh, we cannot set this aside for a small business, there are no procurement opportunities with small business. There's nobody that's doing this, nobody that's servicing this or providing this service, selling this product. If you have educated those procurement center representatives that you're out there willing and able, then they can dispute that. They can go back and say, I don't think that's correct because I met XYZ company and I know that they are saying that they do that. So we need to take a look at that a little bit further, that there's no one out there, because we believe that there is. Okay. The other resource that we have, again, because of the requirement of the agencies to meet their small business goals, are something called the Offices of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization. Now, these will be referred to as OSDBUs, and you see that acronym OSDBU in the second line in the first box. Offices of Small and Disadvantaged Utilizations, they are employed by the agencies. So they are located in the agencies to do much the same, to advocate for small businesses. And they are dedicated to maximizing contract opportunities for small disadvantaged, 8A, women-owned, hub zone, and service-disabled veteran-owned businesses. They're advocates. Their goal is to make small business part of the conversation. They can help through the challenges and find a path to get on board with the agency. These are some of the first individuals that we can make contact with. Contracting officers, decision makers with warrants are very busy, and it is hard to make an initial connection with a contracting officer unless you're fortunate enough to meet them at an outreach event, a networking opportunity. We go through the small business advocates to get in front of those decision makers. So these dedicated federal office advocates for small business, those small business professionals will vary from agency to agency. Now, finding them may be a challenge, it may be very direct. For example, I give you the website here for the VA. Pretty straightforward, va.gov/OSDBU. Okay. Then you look at the USDA, then you got to dig through a couple of pages. You go to the doing business with any agency that you want to work with. First and foremost, go to their website, doing business with them. Now here you see it gets a little bit lengthy because you're connecting through a couple of different pages, but eventually you get to the small and disadvantaged business utilization. Again, OSDBU is in that. It's a long website, but you can get to it from doing business with them. Okay, now this just gives you, again, just to give you some examples of what we're looking at here. This is General Services Administration. Now, this is how they do their Offices of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization. They do it by region. So they have 11 regions across the country. Now, keeping in mind the GSA, General Services Administration, they're the ones that have those multiple award contracts. So they do a lot of sourcing. They do sourcing other than multiple award contracts, but they do the GSA schedules. So they have a reason to have a number of people deployed for small business advocates. And you can see their mission there on the left side. Their Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization connects small businesses with people and resources to help them grow. We are your advocates and believe in small business first. And that really sums up the mission of most all of the OSDBU offices. Now, in this case, you'll see the Department of Justice in their small business. They're divided, based on the DOJ, they have different divisions. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, Bureau of Prisons. So if you want to connect with in the Department of Justice, you've got specific business representatives that you would be connecting with. Okay. So again, these are frontline advocates. We can get to them before we can get to the contracting officers. Now, depending on what your product is, how well informed you are on the mission and vision of the agencies, they may invite in contracting officers when you're able to have a capability briefing with a small business professional. Okay, so the hope would be that that would be a warm introduction then into the contracting office by meeting with these individuals and educating them that what you do and that you're available. Okay, now I also want to mention subcontracting. If you don't have a lot of past performance, I mean, it's pretty obvious that agencies are very risk averse and they want past performance. So you're going to show that in a couple of different ways, but a good way to get past performance, besides the commercial work that you've done, is through subcontracting. Now, the reason I mention this is because they have subcontracting goals as well as prime contracting goals with small business. So tracking achievement, again, this is an example of the agency achievement on subcontracting. There are resources out there to help you find subcontracting opportunities, but I want to, be clear that there are also advocates out there not at the agencies for subcontracting, but at the prime contractor level that are also advocating for small business. So if subcontracting is attractive to you and fits in with your market strategy, which I certainly would encourage you to take a look at subcontracting, I want to mention advocates within prime contractors and how we refer to them. We refer to them small business liaison officers. Very similar to the agencies and the SBA, the small business liaison officers, referred to SBLOs, they are employees of the business, but they perform businesses that perform federal contracting. These SBLOs are the ones that are, again, advocating for the social economic programs, those subcontracting goals that the agencies are holding the prime contractors to. And also on the commercial side, that's referred to as supplier diversity. So not only are they helping the prime contractors meet the agency subcontracting goals, being in that space, they also support supplier diversity goals on the commercial side of those prime contractors. So they're assisting the purchasing personnel. They're reporting, they're doing contract compliance in the databases that are required by the SBA, that are monitoring the subcontracting plans. There are commercial market representatives, also through the SBA, that are holding these primes accountable, these small business liaison officers, to the plans that were established when a contract was issued. So they're interacting with the federal agencies, and they collaborate with the government agencies and advocate through outreach. And they enable the meeting exceeding the small business subcontracting goals and requirements. And what I have here on the right side is just a visual. I'm actually on the board of the Midwest SBLO group. And just, kind of bringing it together, you have the large business contractors, you have the federal government, and you have a small business, and you have that compliance and regulation holding them accountable to those subcontracting goals. Okay, and this is just one example. Raytheon Technologies has a number of those supplier diversity or small business liaison officers that obviously from that diverse list could be contacted to meet and explain your product, your service, and how you could be part of the supply chain for them into the government, working with Raytheon as an example here versus who Raytheon is working with, probably Department of Defense in this case. So one other tool that we have as far as our market strategy goes is putting ourselves out there and making sure that the government is aware, you are out there trying to find those, making connections with those potential customers. They're also doing their market research in order to issue a solicitation. So if you haven't connected with them, they may be trying to find you. One way, the main way that they can do that is in a database called the Dynamic Small Business Search. You'll hear this referred to as DSBS. In fact, you may even get emails from third parties that will seem official and they'll say, oh, you're never going to get a contract. Your DSBS is not complete. Here, let us help you do that. Send us $599.95 and we'll get you in the dynamic small business search and all will be well and your contracts will start flooding in. Well, the dynamic small business search is a highly important tool, but you don't need to pay anybody to do that. Most certainly you can do it yourself, and working with an Apex Accelerator, we're going to help you do that because this is mission critical to have this dynamic small business search filled out, to have it so that it is a marketing tool, have it so that you're searchable by the agencies, most important to promote your business when they are trying to find and decide if they can set something aside for a small business. So you see on the left, just a screenshot of what this initially looks like from a search standpoint. You see on the right, the SBA logo, SBA Connect. This is the website where you'll go into and actually take your profile to the next level. Your profile is created through SAM. So it's very basic. It's the information that you put into SAM. We're going to kick that up a notch, going into the connect.sba.gov, claiming that profile that SAM made for you by your unique entity ID and the banking information. That's how they confirm you, by that banking information that you put into SAM. You put that in this website. You say, this is my profile. I want it. You get access to it. And at that point, you go in and you really build it out. We'll take a look at what that looks like. This is a way a search would be done if for example, this contracting office was looking for the NAICS code 541330 and they wanted to find companies located in California. Maybe they want someone close by for a service that can be on call immediately for maintenance, for example. And they use the keyword historic. Okay, so if you recall putting your information in SAM, you put in your NAICS code, that's mandatory. You put in where your business is located, but you're not putting in those type of keywords like historic. So how are you going to show up in a search if that word is not there? Now you may come up with 541330, but what if you use this? What if historic is a good keyword to describe what you do, but you didn't connect that with NAICS code 541330? So bottom line is you want to be found in any way that would be appropriate. So doing that search, the only way they found historic was because it was in this description. This description is what you have to put into this system. It is not there, and it's up to you to promote your business by going into this database and filling out this information. So certainly contact me if you are not familiar with the DSBS database. After this, as a follow-up, we'll sit down and we'll go through this. We'll look at the SBA site, how you get access to it, and what is important for you to define and use keywords to describe what you do, in addition to that very basic information on NAICS codes and potentially product service codes that you put into SAM. So what you're doing by going into the system is enhancing your capability narrative. Any special equipment or materials, again, that's not in SAM, that you're going to make note of in this database where they're going to be looking for you. Keywords, again, and performance history. There's a place for all of these things in this database, and we want to use it to the maximum extent possible. Another acknowledgement in the system that we don't have in SAM is email addresses. You see this circled at the bottom. You can put emails in here. SAM does not pick up emails. I believe it's probably because they don't want the businesses that are registered there to be, spammed or contacted. And so there'll be phone numbers in SAM, but there aren't emails. You can get emails out of this database. Okay. So enough on the soapbox there, but I do highly encourage you to fully utilize the dynamic small business search. So most small companies face many challenges in identifying those customers. That's our market research. Engaging them. How do we want to engage them so we can educate them on what you do, how well you do it, how you differentiate from your competitors, and you can get ahead of the competition. Okay. There is a fallacy, a misconception out there that you can't talk to contracting officers. You can. And in fact, the FAR encourages the agencies to early exchanges of information about their upcoming acquisitions. The key being upcoming. Okay. They are not allowed to speak with you on specifics for solicitations once they hit the street. Okay, so that is a quiet period. So it's very important for you to understand that the time to talk to them is well before that solicitation is actually issued. And you want to do that. That is very necessary for you to do because you really want to, number one, potentially be a part of how that solicitation is written. And number two, be known to the agency, build that relationship, potentially have a rapport with them so that when that solicitation comes out, and literally I saw one today, issued yesterday, January 6th, a due date of January 10th for the response. Now, unless you know that's coming, unless you've had a chance to work with the agency to understand what they're looking for, what the specifics are going to be to the extent that they can provide them on that upcoming requirement, is going to be very difficult for somebody to respond in 4 days' time. This is strictly an off-the-shelf item. You've got readily available, you've got pricing established, it's on a schedule, that kind of thing. Sure, you could turn that around in 4 days. But you're not going to look at drawings. You're not going to come up with all the requirements on the specs to be able to turn that around and do a good job on your bid in 4 days. The reason that they can do that is because of all the work that's been done ahead of time by those that want to compete on this potential solicitation. So, some techniques used to promote early exchanges of information, industry days, small business conferences, those are hugely important. Many times you'll get the contracting officers out to engage, again, because they are encouraged to do so. And I will show you at the end of the presentation a great upcoming opportunity, which this is intended to prepare you for. We are having a Midwest Contracting Summit, we being all of the Illinois Apex Accelerators, banding together to provide this type of opportunity, an industry day for our clients. Public hearings, market research, one-on-one meetings, talk about how to potentially get those. Pre-solicitations. Now there are issued in SAM solicitations that are requests for information and sources sought. And what those are is that means number one, sources sought, the agency's doing their homework. They're doing their market research. Many times all it asks is, can you do this? Have you done it before? And tell me what your social economic status is. Are you 8A, are you women-owned? Are you a small business? Just give us the specifics on who you are. Give us some indication that you're willing to respond once we issue the solicitation, and then that helps them decide if they can set it aside. In other words, restrict the competition to a small business, or more specifically, a woman-owned small business or a hub-zone small business. So sources sought, hugely, hugely important to respond to those. Now, there are a couple of schools of thought. I am still advocating that sources sought are very important to convince the agency to issue that for small business rather than full and open competition. The others are requests for information. Now that's more specific in that the agency saying, here's my pain, here's my problem, I need to solve it. Tell me what's out there in the market, maybe potentially off the shelf type product, maybe more specifically custom built. But this request for information, tell me, agency, industry, tell me how I could potentially resolve this, solve this problem, buy this product. And in responding to requests for information, not divulging any trade secrets necessarily in an RFI, but if you give them some information on something that they could get from you, they can't get from anyone else, and they write that into the solicitation, because again, this is a pre-solicitation opportunity to be involved in the crafting of the specifics of that solicitation. Maybe they're including something that you do that your competitors do not in that solicitation when it is written, puts you in a better place to respond. Okay, so these special notices are important. They're getting market information, and they're providing general information about the agency needs and future requirements that may even prompt an opportunity to meet with them prior to the solicitation being issued. Okay, so as we prepare for a meeting, okay, understand what's important to this government customer. Okay, they could pick the lowest bid. They're not necessarily allowed to do that. The federal acquisition regulations will help them decide how it's appropriate to award that solicitation. So several factors are considered when they make that choice, not just simply the lowest bid. Cost is important, but it can't be used as a sole basis for selection because cost alone, as we all know, does not guarantee quality or even performance. Past performance. Again, these contracting officers are generally risk averse, so they would like to know, who have you done it for? What have been some of your past performance, your past contracts? And specifically, if they're contracts with agencies, what I do, okay? Your ability to meet their requirements. Now, they're going to be, Department of Defense, military type contracts. They're going to have very specific requirements. And you may be tasked to tell them, not only can you meet, but how do you exceed what their expectations are? Okay. So we want to educate. Okay. How do we prepare to educate in a small business professional meeting? First and foremost, go on their website, understand their mission and goals, to offer your services specifically. I know your mission is to support the warfighter. Here's how I'm going to support your mission to support the warfighter by offering my service or my product. Do your homework. Go in with specifics. If you are fortunate enough to get that meeting with a small business professional, then let them know, I know that 6 months ago, you purchased this service, you purchased this product, and you awarded it in this way. I'd like to talk to you about a follow-up acquisition. You know what they did in the past. How can you be part of the future? Okay. Learn as much as possible about the federal acquisition regulation and that in the system itself. And that is certainly something the Apex accelerators are prepared to help you do. Identify an opportunity you can point to. Again, look at their forecast. Hugely important. We talked about that in our market research section. Acquisition.gov has forecasts on there. Point specifically to Not only did you buy it 6 months ago, I see it's in your forecast for fourth quarter of 2025. When you can show them those specifics, when you can show them that you've done your homework, that means a lot. That moves you forward ahead of your competition when you can be specific in your intent to deal with them. Provide a sound marketing approach. Again, tell them what you can do for them. And know that if you're meeting, for example, with an OSDBU, they're not the decision maker. They're not the end user, but they are liaisons, and they are very important to make those connections. Okay. And don't lead. If you are certified, if you are 8A, HubZone, women-owned, service-disabled veteran, those are marvelous. They help the agencies meet their goals, but they are secondary. They want to know that you can perform and you can assist them in meeting their mission. Okay. Understanding, again, the agency requirements can be done on their websites. This is an example of the USDA website. They're going to tell you exactly what do you need to do business with us. And if you haven't done these things, don't contact them. Don't contact them until you understand what it is they want you to have done. So, for example, FEMA doesn't even want to talk to you until you fill out their industry liaison program, their vendor profile. Okay, very important. They're going to ask you, have you done the vendor profile? If you say no, that's going to be a very short conversation. No guarantee you'll get to meet with them, but there is probably a guarantee that you won't meet with them until you fill out all the information and meet all the requirements that they need for you to do business with them. Okay, again, forecast tool, acquisitiongateway.gov will help you have a forecast in hand when you go in and you have that all important meeting with them. Tell them, hey, this is what I want to talk to you about. Okay, so again, meeting the decision maker. Just 6 key things that a decision maker wants to know from you for that meeting. What can you really do for me to support my goals and mission? Can you work in my unique environment with government constraints and needs? So show them that you understand what it takes to be a government contractor and that you're ready, willing, and able to do it. Have you done this before for someone like me? What is your solution? Why is your solution the best for my needs? Show me that you have a high probability of success, that you are low risk. Again, past performance is a good indicator of that. And what's it going to cost me? Now, you may not, probably wouldn't disclose exact costs in there because you're not going to know. And that's okay. All you need to do is reference, hey, I worked with company XYZ. And my last customer, I was able to save them 10% by deploying this solution. That would be perfectly fine. But what it's going to cost me, really, tell them what's going to save you. Okay. And it's all about building relationships. Be authentic, be yourself, be genuine. Care about who they are as a person. Remember, they're people too. Okay. Say something, introduce your company, spend 30 seconds talking about yourself, and then let them talk about themselves. What are your goals? What's preventing you from getting there? Sit back and listen. Pick out the pain points, pick out the important information they're providing to you. This is all going to be critical when you're able to respond to a solicitation specifically for these types of things. Request contact information and don't be afraid to ask questions. Really, you show a great amount of interest when you ask questions. And whatever they tell you to do, that's what you do. Follow their recommendations. Okay. Again, government buyers buy from people and companies that they trust. Okay, so in developing your market strategy, this just kind of is going to summarize, hey, have a solid understanding of that federal market for your product. Okay, have your elevator pitch. Very important. I think that's something we don't spend enough time on. And in fact, I'm putting together, keep an eye out for our training sessions. I want to have a training session on doing an elevator pitch. That's something I don't necessarily feel I have the best skill set on. So when I introduce what does an Apex Accelerator do, I'd like to have that elevator pitch ready. So we're going to be working on that. Check prime contracts that have been awarded for subcontracting opportunities. Again, I think that's a great way to get past performance. Leverage your set asides to disqualify the competition. Now that sounds a little cold, disqualify the competition, but really what that means is restrict the competition to those that have that set aside, whether it be just a small business or a women-owned business, and also encourage other women-owned businesses. If you're hopeful that it would be set aside for that category, then if you have colleagues, if you have professional organizations for women-owned, small businesses, a solicitation comes out or a request for information comes out, all of you should be responding to that so they see that there are multiple opportunities for women-owned businesses, and then that would encourage them to set it aside. Also might be an opportunity for you to team with another small business, another woman-owned small business, to expand your capabilities to maybe respond to solicitations that you would not do on your own. Okay. There's a lot of resources. We just went through a few of them for small businesses. Take advantage of them. It doesn't cost you anything. You're already investing a lot of time and resources in being in the government marketplace. Take advantage of those resources. Industry days, again, outreach events, can't tell you how important those are. And when you get to a matchmaking event, make sure that you are well prepared and you are strategic about who you meet with, understanding that they buy the product that you sell, and be very well prepared. Okay. Again, forecast. Government agencies plan their budget years in advance. Look at their spending, respond to their pre-RFP opportunities, build a forward-looking picture of what is coming out of all this research that you're doing that looks like our upcoming opportunities. Being a strategic contractor allows you to shape a bid. We talked about requests for information, sources sought, set up searches and filters. There are a couple of things you can do in SAM to have those solicitations as they're issued sent to you. You would be notified of them. If you don't get into SAM every day and search, you don't have to. Those searches will find that information and send it to you. Like for agencies that are performing on their goals, the data bank, the sam.gov website, you see highlighted here, small business goaling reports. You can find out how every agency is doing towards their goals. I showed you that report card, that end of year scorecard, earlier in the presentation. You could see right now, we're just, quarter started October 1st, so we're just in the second quarter of fiscal year 2025. You can see right now how they're doing. Are they falling a little short? Maybe they don't have a very deep bench in small business or women-owned small business. That could be some encouragement for them to want to work with you if you have that status. I mentioned, or I didn't mention, but I will on the previous page, the last box there was a bid match service that we provide as Apex Accelerators that help you find those opportunities. We set up profiles for you, keywords, NACE codes if they're appropriate, and descriptives in solicitations. And we also send you emails through our database, our data search engine, and help you find those upcoming opportunities. Okay. Building a reputation as an expert in your industry, building those relationships with your potential customers, and getting face time, whether it's an industry event or that all-important one-on-one meeting, that's vital to government business, as much so as they are in the private sector. But, understanding that this is going to be different in the government acquisition regulation field. So establishing those relationships up front is going to be key. Just one thing I want to point out to you, which is something I recently learned at a conference in November. There's a field in sam.gov under points of contact. So if you open up your SAM profile, you go into your point of contact, and you've got the government business. You put your name in there. There's a notes field. So there, with the data mining, AI coming in and capturing information, you can put in this data field keywords, a massive amount of keywords. How would they search for you? And I would encourage you to use this field. Again, it's in SAM. It's very unique. It's kind of a hidden gem that we're just finding out about. I know up there that it's a secret, but it's used by government to go in and scrape these keywords as they're doing their market research. The agencies can find this and find you in that way. So I encourage you to use the SAM profile. Okay, so what did we learn? Okay, let's sum this up. Know your competitive position and what distinguishes your product or service from your competition. Outline what you can do as a small business and effectively communicate that to those agencies. And that is really by being prepared and doing your homework. Do a SWOT analysis, assess your strengths, your weaknesses, and opportunities as a small business owner. Be very clear, be very honest with yourself about what those are to develop that federal procurement marketing strategy. Capitalize on your strengths, know your weaknesses, and potentially overcome them. And how do you address the market needs? Okay, and seize on those opportunities. Your market research allowed you to identify 3 to 4 key agencies that are going to be your target, that you're going to focus on. And then your marketing strategy is going to be dedicated to those agencies and understanding missions, visions, needs, pains, and everything in between that you can for those key agencies. And that's why it's so important to narrow your focus and not try to be all things for all people in doing that. And being proactive in marketing your business. We talked about several ways, putting that notes section in SAM under your government point of contact. Something we just discovered, use it as keywords. They're really telling us with AI that the data scraping that they're doing is all basically keywords anymore. So keywords, keywords, keywords. And, putting the dynamic small business search to use for you, making, applying the concepts of the capability statement, making everything consistent. Your branding is all consistent and using that to the extent possible. Okay, and here, February 28th, I mentioned capability statements. We're going to bring this all together in building a capability statement for your business. And that session will be on February 28th, part 3. We have several training sessions in between, but this will wrap up for this quarter, the 3-part series on Start Now in Government Contracting. And then all important, the 2nd Annual Illinois Government Contracting Summit be held Tuesday through Wednesday, March 11th and 12th. They'll be held in Forest Park, Illinois. And we'll have agencies there. We'll have prime contractors there. We're going to have some education. We'll have 3 tracks on local, state, and federal and Department of Defense contracting specifically. And then we'll have the matchmaking, and we'll have a reverse matchmaking that we can certainly talk about one-on-one to get you prepared for that. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Jordan. If you would, if we've got any questions that we can answer.
Thanks so much, Kelly. We do have a couple questions. One came in through the session, and I think they were referring to a specific slide. So hopefully we can either decipher or the individual can provide more information. It just says, would they be able to provide examples of past needs under our NAICS codes?
Would they be able, are you referring to past performance on your part, or are you referring to doing market research to find past contracts by your NAICS code? If you
It
could
says it's
clarify.
for the slide regarding Illinois-based agencies that we can contact.
Illinois-based agencies.
It was submitted at about 10:20, so it was about a third of the way through.
All right. Maybe, I wonder if it was this one.
Yes, they said this slide.
Okay. And you want to know, now these procurement center representatives probably would not they're going to look for you to have that information when you talk to them. So if you would follow up with me afterwards, and I'll show you how you can get that information. But that's part of the homework we would expect that you'd have done. Understand what they've already issued and be able to go in and talk to how your company could meet the needs and be the next provider on those types of contracts. So that's something, let's take that aside and do it one-on-one.
That individual did say they've met with you and they're having some email issues. So I'll send an email to connect all three of us, and maybe that will push something through, and we'll do our best to get that figured out on them too.
Sure.
The next question says, let me make sure. Okay. I've been making 30 vendor profiles a week. Is this worth it? How do we become vendors at supplier diversity events to showcase our business in an experiential marketing way? I'll stop there because it's longer, but we'll get those ones answered first.
Well, my first question would be, do you have a capability statement? If not, that's certainly something that we should be working on. I always encourage participation in industry days, outreach events. That's a way to go and meet them. You know, have your elevator pitch and make sure you can quickly, your capability statement that we're told that contracting officers will spend 6 to 7 seconds on it, and they need to get everything they can in that short amount of time. So we need to take a look at that, make sure it's concise. I would say if you're meeting these folks, are you following up with them? Again, I mentioned when the OSDBUs, when you meet with them and they say, this is what you should do, that you do exactly that. So if you're struggling, we have these resources. If somebody's saying, hey, follow up with me, and then they're not responding, then let's go to folks that can maybe push that along. Find these resources, depending on who you're talking with. If you're talking to state folks, we have connections within the state to say, hey, can you push it along? Now, we do know from talking with the agencies that can be a challenge. You've got supplier diversity representatives that are out there, and they are, making the commitment and saying, hey, we want to work with you. But then the decision makers or the folks that are responsible for actually, doing that work may not be as engaged. So let us know, give us a chance to help support you in those efforts to meet those. If you're doing 30 profiles and you're not getting a response, then we probably need to look at the strategy and how can we make that, because your time is very valuable. How can we make that efficient and make sure that the folks that should be following up with you are, and if they're not, who do we contact to push that along?
And then a follow-up question from that same individual says, also, is there a list of exact roles/titles we should be connecting with for corporate companies? As of now, I look for the directors of the procurement department or look for past RFPs to find the most recent contracting officers and send them an introduction email.
Yeah, certainly looking at RFPs will give you the most recent contracting officers, and they do turn around quite a bit. I mean, we have found that there is, significant movement among the agencies and among those that have warrants that are contracting officers. So certainly finding the most current ones. But again, if you're looking within a company, look for those small business liaison officers, look for supplier diversity folks. They're going to be that front door, the liaisons to get to those purchasing directors. I was a purchasing director at one time for a major corporation. I know it's hard to get connected. Those folks get a lot of cold calls. I'll be honest with you. And because of the fast pace of what it takes, in the procurement department, they may be slow to respond. No question. No excuses, but I've been there, done that, and I understand. So talk to the folks that are assigned to small business, whether it be supplier diversity, small business liaisons. If you're talking in corporations, they're going to be easier to get to than directors of purchasing.
And then we have just two more. The next one says, which agency profiles do you assist with? I thought I heard that you help set up profiles.
I can certainly help you with your profile on the Dynamic Small Business Database. I can direct you that most of the vendor profiles would be in the websites. So if you're looking for an agency, one of your 3 to 4 target agencies is FEMA, for example. I can help you find the FEMA website where you fill out that vendor liaison profile. They're all different. So for example, if you want to work with the Illinois Department of Transportation, they have prerequisites, and they have profiles that you need to fill out if you're going to be a subcontractor. And for example, the Capital Development Board, they have a pre-qualification as a subcontractor, and then they have qualifications as a prime contractor that actually requires references in a couple of weeks to process, where a subcontractor could take an hour or two. So based on who you want to work with, will help you, but will direct you basically to where you need to go to their website, understanding that they do have some prerequisites that you need to do up front to just be qualified to bid on something. And that's something that I can't stress enough. Understanding what it takes to do business with them and doing it up front rather than struggling and trying to do it while you're doing a bid and not having enough time to do it is very important. So that should be part of your marketing strategy to get all of those things done ahead of time, even up to including sam.gov, just having that registration done if you know you're going to work with any federal agency. Work with an Apex Accelerator. Tell them these are my 3 to 4 target agencies. Can you help me figure out what it is I need to do to prepare to bid and to be able to meet with them and promote my business?
The next one says, what does a capability statement consist of?
Great question. So I'll preview it for you, but please consider attending on the 28th because we'll go into a lot more detail. But a capability statement, you'll hear it referred to as a resume for your business, and that's very loosely defined, but it has 3 major sections. It has your core capabilities. So not overall what you do, but what specifically do you want to do for the government? Then you have differentiators, and we looked at those on one of our slides. Those are things that you can quantify, things that make you different from your competition. ISO 9001 certified, metrics that say JD Powers awarded us the quality award for 2024, best quality vehicle. Those things that you can actually quantify, statistics, metrics, those are differentiators. What we don't use is we have the best price, we have the best quality. There's no way to define that. Everybody says that. And then the last part is past performance. Past performance is the who have you done this type of work for previously? Because again, they're risk averse, and past performance shows them opportunity for success. So those 3 and how how you fill in that information is something we're going to talk about. How do you get past performance if you're new? We'll figure out there are ways to put something down there that's important for the contracting officer to know, but it may not be a prior government contract. Okay. It's like trying to get your first job. You've got to put something in there that gives them that level of, expectation for success. But what does that look like? So those are the 3 main sections. You're able to format it. You got to have, your company data. Who do they call? They, call a phone number. Who picks up the phone? Put a name on there. You've got logo, you call it a capability statement. But the bottom line is that is what's most important is those 3 sections. How you format those is much less important as to the information that's on there.
Well, we do have one question that was specific to someone's business, so I did ask them to possibly schedule a one-on-one with you, Kelly, to discuss that further. We are running a little over time here, so we are going to go ahead and wrap up, but I did drop the link to register as a client in the chat. So if anyone wants to continue their conversations with Kelly or find out more information about this, you can register. I also dropped the link to the January 28th session in the chat, so that if you want to come back and rejoin us for that, you can. That session is also offered at no cost. So please feel free to do any of those things. If you are a client of Kelly's already and you'd like to schedule a meeting, you can always reach out via email to do that as well. Kelly's email is right there on the screen. And then again, we will send that follow-up email out later today. Okay, I did just get another note from that individual that your email bounced back for some reason. So we will look into that. Please make sure you're using her new email and not her Bradley one. That one does send a notice that that email is no longer active, but we will do our best to get that figured out. So does anyone else have any other questions before we wrap up for today? All right, well, it doesn't look like it, so we'll go ahead and close out today's session. Thank you everyone for joining us, and thanks so much, Kelly.
Thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you in future sessions. Thank you.